Some stories don't begin with vows or rings. They begin with a meal, with a table, with a place where everyone belongs. A hall filled with noise, the smell of roasted turkey, the laughter of children who don't yet know what tradition means, only that they're welcome here. Welcome to Men Being Too Intimate, an audio story series exploring what happens when two men blur the emotional lines between service and affection, between tradition and longing, between community and the home they're still building. Tonight's story brings us to Philadelphia, where in ESFJ warm, giving, always hosting, and in ISFJ steady, thoughtful, quietly present. Together they prepare more than food. They prepare to share themselves, a celebration, a slip of truth, and the courage to say what was already felt. This is Men Being Too Intimate, the Thanksgiving announcement. Michael thrived in the countdown to a holiday. The kitchen looked like a command post. Lists overlapping, pens scattered, groceries half-sorted. His voice ran ahead of his thoughts as he counted, cross-checked, then counted again. Mashed potatoes covered. Vegetables done. Stuffing, cranberry, pies all on friends. That leaves... His pen tapped the page like a drumbeat. Turkey. And your salad. Daniel didn't flinch at the weight of it. The salad wasn't just greens, it was his quiet signature. The dish kids and adults alike came back for every year. The roasted squash cooling on the counter would be tossed with spinach, candied pecans, dried cranberries, goat cheese, and a maple balsamic vinaigrette he'd whisk by hand. Steady work, no fuss. The turkey, on the other hand, would be Michael's stage. Though Daniel knew he'd be standing right beside him, basting, checking, keeping the chaos in line. Michael ran a hand through his hair, muttering under his breath about oven timing. Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying that hint of dry humor Michael adored. You sure you can resist fussing with the oven door every 5 minutes? Michael looked up, mock outrage already on his lips, but the grin cracked through before he could finish it. I'll have you there to stop me. Daniel's smile deepened as he set his mug down, brushing his fingers over Michael's hand where it pressed against the notepad. The rings on their hands glinted under the kitchen light new, still strange to see. Daniel's thumb lingered over the band as he murmured, still getting used to this. Michael soughed, the lists momentarily forgotten. Good strange? The best strange? Daniel answered before leaning in, fingers lacing with his. The kiss across the counter was unhurried, the kind that pressed time flat. When they pulled back, Michael's laugh slipped out, half relief, half wonder. Daniel's smile stayed steady, patient, grounding, as though the whole kitchen revolved around that small moment. Michael picked the pen back up, tapping it against the list. You realize one day we'll be doing this with 3 kids underfoot. No one will even hear me panicking. Daniel shook his head, amused, though something in his eyes caught on the thought. Then I'd better make 2 salads. Michael's grin spread, and the kitchen filled again with his voice counting, planning, moving faster than the pen. Daniel let it run, steadying the chaos the way he always had. The groceries still needed sorting, the week ahead demanded, but beneath it all, the lists weren't just about food. They were rehearsals. Signs of the life they were already building, hand in hand, ring against ring. Michael pushed through the double doors first, arms straining under the weight of 3 oversized turkeys. I swear these weigh more than the kids were feeding, he muttered, half stumbling toward the prep counter. Volunteers rushed forward, laughing as they eased the load out of his arms, steadying him before he could drop one. His grin stayed fixed, cheeks flushed from the effort, blazer long since abandoned for rolled-up sleeves. As the commotion settled, Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. He balanced one turkey on the counter, pulled the phone free, and read the message with a half-smile tugging at his lips. I've made your favorite. We'll miss you. He typed quickly, thumbs flying. Mom, I'll call back tonight. Daniel, already stationed at a nearby table, glanced up from his careful arrangement of squash and greens. Who was that? Michael's grin widened. Mom. Daniel nodded, a smile forming, but the ache behind it was one Michael knew too well. There was no one on Daniel's side to text, no favorite dish waiting miles away. Michael noticed the flicker, abandoned the turkey mid-counter, and closed the distance between them. He slipped an arm around Daniel, hugging him tight, voice low against his ear. She'd treat you like a son. You know that, right? Daniel exhaled into the embrace, nodding once before letting him go. The noise of the hall rushed back in, but something steadier lingered between them. He turned back to his task, the autumn harvest salad. A simple dish, but one people remembered. He placed a wide bowl on the table, spread fresh spinach leaves across its base, and reached for the roasted squash. "Stop there!" Daniel froze, hand hovering over the tray. A teenager stood a few feet away, phone raised, already filming. "Step by step," the kid said with a grin. "We're making this a short. Best salad recipe right here." Daniel arched a brow. "Really?" "Really," the teen insisted, adjusting his stance like a director calling shots. Daniel sighed through a chuckle, but obliged. Slowly, he let the golden cubes tumble in. The kid crouched for the close-up. "Nice. Say what that is again." "Butternut squash," Daniel replied, tone dry but eyes warm. "Perfect." Daniel reached for the cranberries, scattering them across the greens. The red burst against the green, catching the light. The camera zoomed close, and another kid leaned in to watch. "Hold up pecans now," the teen said, voice eager. "Do it slower." Daniel shook his head, but laughter softened the refusal. He sprinkled the candied pecans one by one, ridiculous in its patience, but the kids clapped like it was performance art. "Goat cheese," someone called, pointing. Crumbles fell like snow over autumn fields. Daniel kept his pace even, letting the lens capture every detail. What should have been a 5-minute toss stretched into nearly half an hour. Volunteers passed by, amused, teasing Daniel about his sudden stardom, while kids leaned closer, narrating like commentators at a game. Finally, he lifted the jar of maple balsamic vinaigrette. The teen angled the camera, hushed the crowd like it was a finale. Daniel poured in a slow ribbon, steady and sure, the glaze catching the light. "Now that," the teen announced, "is chef energy." The crowd laughed, clapped, then burst into chatter again. Daniel offered the spoon, and the teen tossed the salad with exaggerated flourish, recording until the last leaf glistened. As Daniel reached to steady the bowl, the overhead light struck his hand. The ring flashed in the lens. The kid froze, then lowered the phone, eyes widening with a grin. "So, that's the ring, huh?" Daniel glanced down, startled at first, then softened. His hand curled briefly into a fist before relaxing again, fingers spreading against the wooden table. "Yeah," he said simply, voice quiet but certain. "That's the ring." The kids exchanged looks, half teasing, half awed, but none of it felt cruel. It was curiosity, wonder, even pride. "All right, you vultures take the sauce ones, not the plain greens. Save the rest for later dinner, okay?" They nodded, munching happily, while the teen with the phone whispered, "That's going to look amazing online." Daniel only shook his head, bemused, the glint of his ring catching the light as he reached for another handful of pecans. Across the hall, Michael looked up from where he was. Their eyes met, and the grin that tugged at his mouth carried more weight than words. The noise of the hall swelled around them, pans clattering, kids shouting, pies arriving, but in that glance, in the shine of matching bands caught in the light, it felt like the whole room already knew. Michael had his sleeves rolled up, wrist deep in a bowl of stuffing. He spooned it carefully into the turkey cavity, patting the sides as though steadying a child. Volunteers helped lift the bird onto its roasting pan, sliding it into the preheated oven with a cheer as if it were a small victory. Michael wiped his hands on a towel, checked the clock above the counter, and muttered, "All right, in by 1, done by 5. Perfect." The Philadelphia Community Center glowed warmer. The smell of roasting turkey spread through the halls, blending with cinnamon pies, stuffing, and the faint sweetness of candied yams. Voices bounced against the high ceiling, volunteers streaming in with trays, arms full of serving spoons, laughter spilling over the noise of children darting past. Michael kept to the kitchen, sleeves rolled and pen tucked behind his ear like a soldier in command. He hovered near the ovens, crouching low to squint at the thermometer, basting the turkey he'd claimed as his own. The second bird was roasting steady, the third still waiting for its glaze. He thumbed his phone, muttering under his breath as he tapped through calls. "Desserts are en route. Great. And the mac and cheese?" "Perfect. Just before 3. He slipped the phone into his pocket, exhaling relief. Then the door swung open again, and 2 neighbors walked in balancing pans of sweet potato casserole, another trailing behind with baskets of homemade rolls. The room erupted with cheers. Michael's grin stretched wide as he hurried forward to clear counter space, his voice booming with genuine warmth. "You didn't say you were bringing extra. This looks incredible." The unexpected abundance made the spread feel even more special, and for once Michael's eyes shone with something beyond logistics, pure gratitude. Across the hall, Daniel moved at a different pace. His hands were steady as he adjusted the paper garlands strung across the wall, nudging each one until it hung evenly. He set votive candles on the long tables, small glass cups catching the light from the windows. When one child leaned forward, reaching for the matches, Daniel crouched beside him and shook his head with a quiet smile. "Not yet," he said, voice soft but certain. "Candles only make sense when dinner starts." The boy nodded solemnly as if entrusted with a secret and darted off again. Daniel stepped back, surveying the tables. Plates stacked neatly, napkins folded, chairs aligned. A basketball thumped against the floor behind him, and when he turned, another boy grinned, spinning the ball in one hand. "You playing later?" the kid asked, bouncing it once with a sharp smack. Daniel chuckled. "I'll play tomorrow." "Can't sweat today, I promise to stay clean for once." The boy groaned theatrically but accepted it, running off toward the doors where other kids waited. Daniel smiled to himself, brushing flour from his sleeve, then turned back to the hall. The tables shimmered under the autumn decorations, candles waiting for their moment, the smell of food curling like an invitation in the air. Across the room, he caught sight of Michael again, phone tucked away now, laughing with volunteers as they juggled trays. Different energies, different rhythms, but both carrying the same quiet weight, holding space for a community that already felt like family. An elder stepped forward, silver hair pinned neatly back, cardigan sleeves rolled to the wrist. Her voice carried not with volume but with weight, the kind that quieted even the fidgeting children. She began with a memory, a Thanksgiving long ago, one with too little food but too much love to forget. The details weren't grand. Handmade rolls stretched to feed 10. One pie sliced thin enough for every plate, but the point held steady. Gratitude isn't about the table's size, but the hearts gathered around it. Michael slipped in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel before dropping it over. He found Daniel, near the back posture, relaxed but attention forward. Without a word, Michael sat down beside him. Their shoulders touched, then leaned until they rested just enough to feel the other's warmth. The elder's story wound on of patience, of holding on to love even when it seemed fragile. A little girl raised her hand halfway through, asking if the elder had ever been lonely. The hall hushed further. The elder smiled softly, answering that even loneliness can be softened by remembering love that once was, and by trusting love that's still to come. Daniel's hand found Michael's. The rings caught faint against the string lights, small but gleaming. Neither of them moved to hide it. For a moment, they weren't hosts or volunteers. They were just two men sitting in a circle of community, listening to a story about love that lasts. The elder's voice threaded over them, weaving gratitude into silence, and in that hush, their own story felt like it was only just beginning. Michael carried the first turkey himself, chest proud, sleeves rolled. The bird gleamed golden, skin crisp, juices beating against the knife's edge as he made the first slice. A sigh of approval rippled through the crowd. When he lifted the slice for display, steam curling upward, a child actually clapped. The second came out under the careful balance of two teenagers. The skin crackled as the foil dropped away, scent rich with garlic and herbs. Michael leaned close, tested a cut, and passed a bite to one of the helpers. The teen gave a dramatic thumbs up, sending laughter spinning through the hall. Then the third. Volunteers lowered it onto the table, and Michael pressed his blade through with more effort. The sound was sharper, the slice less generous. The meat pulled dry under the knife. For a moment, the cheer faltered into polite murmurs. One bold teen broke the pause. "This one's dry." Michael froze, blade mid-cut, the hall waiting for his reaction. Then his grin snapped back, quicker than the doubt. "Not mine," he declared, stepping back with flair. The laughter rolled instantly. The room bright again. Heads turned toward Daniel at the far table. He raised his hand in mock surrender, lips pressed tight to hold back a smile. "Yeah," he admitted, chuckling low. "You caught me." The noise swelled louder than before. Cheers, teasing, applause for both of them. Children filled their plates regardless, scooping cranberries, stuffing, potatoes, salad, and yes, even slices of the drier bird. Volunteers exchanged knowing looks. In the end, nothing went to waste. Michael and Daniel found themselves shoulder to shoulder again, their playful cover and quiet banter wrapping them into the noise of community. One quick with words, the other steady in admission, both caught in the warmth of a hall that carried them like family. "Michael," one of the volunteers called, smiling. "You should say a few words. You're the one who pulled this whole thing together." Applause rose instantly, kids drumming their hands against the table. Michael flushed, wiping his palms on his napkin before standing at the head of the room. All right, he said, voice carrying easily over the noise. "First off, thank you. For showing up, for bringing food, for putting up with my endless lists." Laughter rippled. "It takes a whole community to make a dinner this big. I just gotta boss people around a little." He paused for the chuckles to fade, his grin softening. "Seriously though, this is what Thanksgiving means. Not just the food, but being together. And tonight we've got more than enough of both." He glanced toward Daniel and his voice shifted steadier. "And since this is about family and making it official, there's something else." His hand brushed the tablecloth as if searching for balance. Then, with a deep breath, "As many of you noticed already, yes. Daniel and I are engaged. We're getting married next spring." The room erupted. Cheers, claps, kids shouting, teens whistling. A few people stood, crossing over to shake Daniel's hand, clap his shoulder. Michael laughed into the noise, cheeks red but eyes bright, and leaned just enough to rest his hand on Daniel's back. Daniel raised his hand in half a wave, embarrassed but smiling, the silver band on his finger catching the candlelight. He didn't need to speak, the applause carried everything for him. The hall seemed to glow warmer, the announcement settling not like surprise, but like something everyone had already known and was only waiting to celebrate. "Congratulations" came from every direction, the word carrying pride more than surprise. Daniel received the same, though in quieter ways. One of the teens handed him a roll with mock ceremony. Another elder squeezed his arm gently and whispered, "He's a lucky man." Daniel nodded. Between courses of turkey and potatoes, the flow of congratulations didn't slow. Kids darted around the tables with plates of pumpkin pie, pausing to grin at the couple before scampering off again. Even the ones who'd teased about the dry turkey circled back with a sheepish grin. Then, from the far side of the table, one bold teen leaned back in his chair, hands cupped around his mouth. "No kiss, huh?" The hall erupted in laughter, all eyes swinging to the end of the table. Michael and Daniel froze for a second, glancing at each other, then Michael shook his head in mock disbelief. "You really don't miss a thing, do you?" he said, voice carrying with ease. Daniel chuckled, leaning just close enough that their shoulders brushed. Daniel gave a squeeze. Michael answered with a grin, and though they didn't rise to the chant, the warmth between them was obvious. The hall had thinned to its last clusters of laughter. Teens shuffled chairs into stacks, a few elders gathered pie tins, the floor littered with confetti-colored napkins. Michael bent to lift a tray of turkey bones, Daniel gathering cups into a bag, but they were both stopped with gentle insistence. "You've been here since morning," one volunteer said, swatting at Michael's hand with a dish towel. "Go home, both of you," another added, already sliding chairs against the wall. "You've done enough." They shared a look, half protest, half relief, then laughed softly. Their fingers brushed as they slipped out the doors, the noise of cleanup fading behind them. At home, the quiet was immediate, almost startling. Jackets landed over the back of a chair, shoes kicked loose by the door. The heater hummed low, filling the silence between them. Michael hesitated with his phone in hand, thumb hovering over the screen. "I should call," he murmured. Daniel gave a small nod, settling onto the couch. Michael stepped aside first, his voice quiet as the line connected. "Hey, Mom, I wanted to tell you myself. Daniel and I are engaged." A pause, then a rush of warmth on the other end. His face broke into a smile, the tension in his shoulders easing. "Thanks, Mom," he said, before flicking the speaker on so Daniel could hear. Her voice filled the room. "That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you both. Daniel, you're family already. At Christmas, I'll make Michael's favorite and yours too." Daniel blinked, caught off guard, then smiled. "Thank you," he said softly, the word carried by more emotion than sound. Daniel stayed behind in the living room, standing at the window where the city spilled its scattered lights across the glass. The phone felt heavier in his hand than it should. He typed slowly, backspacing twice before settling on the words, "I'm getting married in spring." His thumb hovered for a moment, then pressed send. The message slipped away into silence. The screen dimmed, blank. The quiet pressed closer. He stayed there, shoulders drawn tight, watching headlights sweep past below. The phone hung at his side now, useless, awaited without answer. From behind him came the soft tread of bare feet against wood. Michael's reflection appeared faint in the glass before his voice reached him. "What are you thinking?" Daniel turned his head, lips parting, then closed again. He finally said, low and steady, "I told them. Don't know if I'll hear back." Michael didn't hesitate. He crossed the room, warm hand resting against Daniel's arm. His touch carried no rush, no pity, just presence. "Doesn't matter," he murmured. "You've got me." Daniel let out a long breath, something tight loosening in his chest. His hand came up, finding Michael's shoulder, then his cheek. Their foreheads touched before their lips did, the kiss slow, patient, unhurried. The phone slipped onto the windowsill, forgotten. Daniel leaned fully into Michael now, as if anchoring himself against him. Michael drew back only to search his eyes, then tugged gently at his hand. "Come on," he whispered. Daniel followed, letting himself be led away from the glass, away from the blank screen, into the soft light of their bedroom, where the covers were already turned down and the air carried nothing but warmth. They kissed again, deeper this time, rings glinting faintly in the lamplight as Michael pulled him close. No stage, no crowd, just the quiet certainty of two lives threading closer. The lamp cast a golden pool across the sheets, catching on silver bands and joined hands. Outside, the city went on without them. Inside, it was real, it was theirs, it was already the beginning of forever. Thanksgiving ended with candles burned low. A hall cleaned and quiet, and two men standing at a window, rings still new, hearts already certain. ESFJ and ISFJ. One who leads with warmth, the other who steadies with care. Together, they build a life not just in lists and kitchens, but in the soft moments after, where promises are whispered in lamplight, and family is chosen as much as it is given. Some bonds are celebrated in public. Others are made real in private, and on this night, both belong to them. That's what happens when men are too intimate. This was Michael and Daniel, a story of community and gratitude, of joy shared in candlelight, and of love that began in Thanksgiving, but will last beyond every season.